Chris Krebs is out as the director of the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. The Trump administration also asking CISA Deputy Director Matthew Travis and CISA's Assistant Director for Cybersecurity, Brian Ware, to step down. Suzanne Spaulding is Senior Advisor of Homeland Security at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. She's former Undersecretary for the National Protection and Programs Directorate at DHS. Chris Painter is President of the Global Forum on Cyber Expertise Foundation. He's former Coordinator for Cyber Issues at the State Department. Folks, welcome. Thank you very much for joining me today. What is the state, Suzanne, I'll start with you, of our cyber posture as the Biden administration takes over? And what are the main pieces that they should be working on?
So despite the disruption at CISA, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency that was led by Chris Krebs, who was fired for telling the truth, I have great confidence that the professionals that are at the agency, from the acting director, Brandon Wales, to the other career professionals who are there, Bob Kolaski, Emily Early, Steve Harris, Dan Sutherland, I could go on. They are doing the mission every day of strengthening the security and resilience of our critical infrastructure against all hazards, physical and cyber. So I think we are in good shape in terms of the ongoing mission activities at that agency. But the cyber mission continues to be incredibly challenging. And as the new administration comes in, they are going to own all of those challenges at noon on January 20th. Which is why it's so important that this transition has begun.
Chris, your credential speaks to the issue that CISA is responsible for right now, and that is coordinating among the individual agencies, private sector, and many other stakeholders. What's your sense of what should happen in the new administration at the individual agencies? You and I have spoken before about your desire to see someone restored to a position like you held at State. Is that something we should expect to see separate and distinct from chief information officers or CISOs across each agency, someone whose task is to oversee cybersecurity?
Yeah, and certainly the chief information security officers are important, but you also need policy leadership, and you need a conductor for the orchestra, if you will. And so the Trump administration demoted and really got rid of the White House cyber coordinator. They demoted and essentially buried my old office, my old position at the State Department, which coordinate those international developments. And I expect in a Biden administration, you'll see both of those things restored in some manner. I think that many recommendations have come out that propose that. We need a coordinated policy to deal with these. I agree with Suzanne that we have good people still at DHS, but this is an area, this is a time when we're particularly vulnerable because we're in this transition period, and there's certainly a lot of state and non-state actors out there. And the priority of cybersecurity has never been more important. So the number one thing I think that we'll see, and the most important thing, is a signaling that this really is a priority, a national security, economic, and foreign policy priority for this new administration. And part of that will be putting these structures in place to make sure that we can carry out that mission.
Would establishing, Chris, that White House position be the most important signal, though, that a new administration could send?
I think it's a very important signal. I think that says, look, we're elevating this back to the position it needs to be. This is a core issue again, of our national security, and we're putting someone in charge who will orchestrate the efforts of a lot of great agencies, of DHS, of State, of Department of Justice, of Department of Defense and Commerce. You really need that call, and that signals both to our friends and to our adversaries this is a very important issue. Now, of course, we also have to do the substantive work of making sure that those agencies are prepared to deal with these issues, that we're prioritizing this in our interactions between the president and all the cabinet secretaries. You know, one thing that I saw under the Obama administration is President Obama raised this issue almost all the time with his foreign counterparts. That never happened under President Trump. So having that level of engagement helps the entire government prioritize these issues.
Suzanne, we focus a lot on this program and in the general cyber discussion about the issues that we have with potential adversaries or bad actors that want to try to do bad things to us. What does a constructive cyber alliance or partnership look like around the world in the new administration, do you think?
Yes, well, much like the partnership that we have worked for years to forge with the private sector, it starts with having mutual respect and understanding of what each side brings to the table. We worked on some important cyber agreements with countries around the world, and we need to continue to do that. And it needs to happen at the most senior levels, but it also needs to continue to happen on a daily basis at the working level. These computer emergency response teams around the country that we have helped to build, those working relationships are so important. And then the work that Chris did on building international norms so that we have a firm understanding of what it is, what our key objectives are, what is and is not acceptable in cyberspace, so that we can begin to build a more effective deterrent strategy. And this is what the Cybersecurity Solarium Commission was talking about, in talking about a layered deterrence and strategic deterrence.
We have about a minute left, Chris, and when Suzanne says international norms, I go back to your former position. It strikes me that person or some person doing some similar work at state will be one of the most important people in the administration to work on establishing those international norms and then watching them mature.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, right now, I think implementing those norms, making sure that there are consequences for bad actors who violate those rules of the road, so there's accountability and there's deterrence, working on capacity building. These are all key things going forward, and really having that position to lead these is important. I'd say one other thing, and the Biden administration more generally has already signaled that that the U.S. is returning to the world stage. We are going to prioritize our alliances, both with traditional allies, but also partners around the world. And that's going to be incredibly helpful in building this international system where we do both have understandings of what's acceptable and what's not, but also consequences for those who transgress those rules. And so those kind of partnerships internationally are going to be critically important, both at the cyber level and also at the larger level as we're dealing with friends and allies around the world, that we're not undermining our allies. We're building on things like NATO and bilateral and multilateral relationships.
Chris Painter, Suzanne Spaulding, a terrific conversation. Thanks very much for joining me today.
Thank you,
Happy to be here.
Francis.